Hello and welcome back to my humble show. I am your host for today and every other day, the Articulate Thinker. Hopefully, but I'm going to skip the rest of my intro because this is just a follow-up to my previous video, which was about the missing F-35 fighter jet, which has now been found, or at least the wreckage has been found in South Carolina. I don't want to spend too much time on this because, like I said, I spent some time on it earlier. I was on my lunch break. Didn't have a lot of time then, but I covered what I could, and shortly after I went back to work, more news broke. So I'm going to break it down for you to the best of my ability. Silly me, I don't know too much. If you know something I don't know, let me know in the comments below. Feel free to disagree with me on anything I say. I'm no expert on the matter, military matters, that is, but I'm going to have my say here, so bear with me. Here's an article from the New York Times. The headline reads, F-35 jet mystery ends as wreckage is found. Debris was found north of Charleston, South Carolina, one day after a pilot on a training mission ejected and the military lost track of his jet. Again, I don't think everything there is to know about this is known. So if that becomes known, I'll cover that as well. I will break that down as well, to the best of my ability. But for now, this is all we know about the pilot. I don't believe his actual identity has been made public at this point, but it sounds like he may have been in training. I mean, he was literally training, but as for his status, whether he was a rookie or, someone further along, I'm not sure. We'll see. I don't believe he has been thoroughly vetted, or shall I say, interrogated at this point. See what the grand conspiracy is all about? Interrogate him. Interrogate him here and now. Actually, they probably already have interviewed him. And maybe he knows what exactly happened. Maybe he doesn't. But I'm going to pause for a moment for a thumbnail. All right. Moving on. The United States military said on Monday evening that searchers had found the wreckage of an F-35 jet in South Carolina one day after the Marine Corps inexplicably lost track of it when the pilot ejected with a parachute. And I know I covered this earlier, and so some of this might seem repetitious. I'll try to speed read through this and not repeat myself too much. Joint Base Charleston said in a statement that searchers who had been looking for the missing warplane located debris in Williamsburg County, north of Charleston. A spokesman for the U.S. Marine Corps later confirmed that it was from the jet. It has been confirmed. So the conspiracy is over for now. Members of the community should avoid the area as the recovery team secures the debris field. The statement said, adding that Joint Base Charleston was handing command of the incident to the Marine Corps as they begin the recovery process. If there's anything left to recover, I don't know how destroyed this destruction is, how destroyed this debris is. The discovery came after an array of government and civilian agencies had spent more than 24 hours searching for the missing F-35. Joint Base Charleston had even made an unusual plea for help, releasing a phone number for members of the public to call with information about the lost plane. Of course, there was speculation at the time that this plane could be anywhere. I assumed with it being an autopilot, it would be in a somewhat slower state of speed. But again, what do I know about all of this? Obviously, it didn't make it very far. Now, if that means it just wasn't in the air for very long, well, that's a possibility. Or maybe it was hovering around up there for who knows how long. I mean, we're now learning of the whereabouts of the debris over 24 hours later, so I'm not sure how long it's been there on the ground, presumably burning. Though I can't confirm that there was any fire. You would think if there was a fire, it would be easier to find as well. So there's that. Before the debris was found, a search had prompted widespread speculation was the jet still somehow airborne, perhaps flying on autopilot? Had it crashed undetected into a lake or the ocean? Did the Pentagon really have no method for tracing it? So this article seems to suggest that it wasn't really known whether or not the jet was even an autopilot. So maybe my reporting from earlier was incorrect and it was never even an autopilot. I'm not sure at this point about much of anything. Go figure. How in the heck do you lose an F-35? Representative Nancy Mace, a South Carolina Republican and the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, had asked her social media followers, "We're asking the public to what? Find a jet and turn it in?" Of course, there were some fears that some foreign agency or foreign country could have gotten their hands on this very expensive jet worth at least $80 million, I believe. So here are some additional details, I believe. No. These are links to different articles about different armed forces related incidents and issues. So I'll skip that. The mystery began when a Marine pilot used an emergency parachute to eject from the F-35B Lightning II on Sunday afternoon over North Charleston, South Carolina. He was taken to a local medical center and was in stable condition there. Jeremy Huggins, a spokesman for Joint Base Charleston, said Sunday. Stable condition, that's good. It was unclear why the pilot needed to bail out. A second F-35 pilot who had also been on the training mission landed without any problems, Tech Sergeant James Kaysen, another base spokesman, said. I'm not sure of the identity of that individual either, but it sounds like these planes were flying in the same vicinity. I'm not sure why the one did not follow the trajectory of the other. Maybe he saw the bailout and he circled over the bailing pilot. I'm not sure. The parachuting pilot, that is. Bail kind of sounds like a fail, and I don't know what the failure was here, so I don't want to criticize the pilot or anything like that. I'm just assuming that he at least could have been relatively new on the job, but that's not much of an assumption, is it? I mean, it's an assumption since I don't know. I don't know much of anything, come to think about it, do I? Based on the mission, or on the missing plane's last known position, the base had been focusing on an area around Lake Moultrie, a large lake about 33 miles north of Charleston, and Lake Marion, the state's largest lake, in coordination with the Federal Aviation Administration, Joint Base Charleston said. Nearing the end of this article, I believe, but I will proceed to read. Williamsburg County, where the debris was found, is not far from those lakes. It was not immediately clear if anyone in the vicinity had reported seeing or hearing a crash. The search involved the Marines, its 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing, Navy regional authorities in the Southeast, the Civil Air Patrol, and the Federal Aviation Administration. Law enforcement teams across the state were also helping. The disappearance of the jet had prompted jokes and memes on social media. On Threads, the Instagram platform, and to be honest, I didn't even know Threads was still a thing, but apparently it is, according to the New York Times. I'm sure they would rather give Threads props than X. But anyways, on Threads, the Instagram platform, the actor Misha Collins wrote under a picture of the jet, "That's what they get for leaving the keys in the ignition. In other words, or in other news, check out my new listing on Craigslist. No lowball offers." All right. Have a laugh. What's the problem? Tim Robinson, the editor-in-chief of Aerospace, the magazine of the Royal Aeronautical Society, asked on X. Okay. Giving props to X now, formerly Twitter. He posted a photo of an F-35 on a golf course. "I just sneaked off for a quick round of golf." As Trump would. More seriously, the incident prompted broader safety concerns. The Marines released a statement on Monday saying that General Eric M. Smith, the acting commander of the Marines, had directed all Marine Corps aviation units to conduct a 2-day pause in operations this week to discuss aviation safety matters and best practices. So, an attempt to prevent this from becoming a trend, they are going to lay some law down or something. I don't know exactly what. It could be that there is a problem with the production of the plane, or maybe they just have some very, very diverse hires who didn't actually meet the standards necessary. Which is why, one reason why it would be interesting to know who the pilot is. But aside from that, I don't know. I don't really care. The statement said the directive came after 3 Class A aviation mishaps over the last 6 weeks. Such mishaps involve property damage of $2.5 million or more, according to a Marine Corps document. So maybe this is already a bit of a trend, and some other incidents have occurred. There are other issues to discuss, obviously. During the safety stand-down, aviation commanders will lead discussions with Marines focusing on the fundamentals of safe flight operations, ground safety, maintenance, and flight procedure, and maintaining combat readiness, the statement said. The F-35 is one of 3 types of small jets that have been made for the U.S. military. Figured there were more types than that. The F-350... Scratch that. F-35B. Which can both take off and land vertically as well as hover in place, is only operated by the Marine Corps, which can fly them from aircraft carriers and smaller amphibious assault ships alike. The jet is designed to carry weapons like air-to-air missiles and guided bombs in international bays, which reduces the warplane's radar signature, making it harder for potential enemies to find. The stealthiness may also be partially responsible for why the Pentagon appears to have lost contact with the plane. So it seems. Manufactured by Lockheed Martin, the F-35B Lightning II completed its first combat strikes for the Marine Corps in Afghanistan in 2018. Oh, interesting. The F-35's Joint Strike Fighter program is the Department of Defense's most expensive weapon system program, which estimates that it will cost nearly $1.7 trillion to buy, operate, and sustain the aircraft and systems over their lifetime. The Government Accountability Office said in a report released in May. The cost of the Marine Corps jet has varied over the life of the program. The federal government said it was as low as $70 million in 2012, and the Project on Government Oversight said it was as high as $135 million in 2020. The most common number I've been seeing is $80 million, but I don't know which is the current cost, the accurate current cost. Okay, so moving on. A bit of satire for you, a bit of sarcasm for you from the Babylon Bee. Bad luck. Military announces lost F-35 was carrying Epstein client list. I wouldn't be surprised. But no, that is just a joke. They joke, they kid. Here's something else. Reports that the missing F-35 has been found at Mar-a-Lago. Oh, wouldn't you know it? Other people were joking that Vladimir Zelensky had it. All kinds of memes going around. This one from Roger S., whoever that is. Someone who's in real estate, apparently. And here was something which was making its rounds much earlier in the day. Missing. The notice on a tree here. As though it's a pet project, maybe. Last seen, Charleston, South Carolina. So this was posted by DC Drano, who said, America's military was the most feared and respected in the world under President Trump. Now we have trans leaders losing F-35 jets under Biden while he checks his watch at soldier funerals. Okay, the last part of that, you're trying a little bit too hard to tie things together. But overall, yeah, the focus has been on diversity rather than strength to a certain degree. So I agree with the sentiment, DC Drano, even if you're trying a little too hard there. I'm not going to tie this to the Biden administration too closely. I mean, they may have had more local problems, and hopefully they can sort those out in their meeting and greeting. But this is who has been making the announcements. First and foremost, Joint Base Charleston, where this jet took off from originally. They've been keeping the country updated. So I read some of their statements earlier in my previous video. Here's what has come out, what has been posted since then. They said, teams from JB Charleston, MCAS Beaufort, South Carolina, the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing out of MCAS Cherry Point, Navy Region Southeast, the FAA, the Civil Air Patrol, as well as local county and state law enforcement across South Carolina have been working together to locate the U.S. Marine Corps F-35B. That's not much of an update. I mean, nothing that I hadn't already covered in my previous show. Members of the community should avoid the area as the recovery team secures the debris field. Okay. We are transferring incident command to the USMC this evening as they begin the recovery process. And they said that about 2 hours ago, I believe. Yeah. Here's the top of this thread. I didn't even start at the top. It said personnel from Joint Base of Charleston and MCAS Beaufort, South Carolina, in close coordination with local authorities, have located a debris field in Williamsburg County. The debris was discovered 2 hours northeast of JB Charleston. So it didn't make it that far. Again, I don't know what speed it was traveling, how long it was in the air, things of that nature. But you get the drift. You get the gist. All right, so moving on here. Raw's Alerts had posted this. Same old, same old. No need to read that. It's just the news of the find. Here it is on the map. Williamsburg County F-35 debris discovered in correlation to Joint Base Charleston. Get a bit of an overview there. That from Raw's Alerts. Let me see if there's anything interesting in the thread down below. According to news outlets, the stealth fighter jet was found near the town of Stuckey. More than 30... My goodness. Let me start that sentence over. According to news outlets, the stealth fighter jet was found near the town of Stuckey, more than 63 miles from the North Charleston backyard where the pilot landed. Someone asks, what does debris mean? Raw's Alerts responds, like parts and pieces of the jet, and so on. You think? But I mean, we don't know how many parts and pieces it was in, so it's still a decent question. Though it sounds a little dumb. Here's some information from someone who goes by the tag Emergent Perspective, who says, here's some key information. The aircraft was from a VM FAT 501, a training squadron. This could have been a pilot in training, performing or practicing procedures for the first time. That may explain a lot about what went wrong here. Mission. Conduct combat capable, network-enabled fighter attack training across the full spectrum of combat operations for selected aircrew in order to attain annual F-35B pilot training requirements. So this person is suggesting that the pilot was a pilot in training to the extent where he may have been a rookie, so to speak. But I can't confirm that. Also, see my thread for some additional info on and Q&A from a veteran with subject matter expertise in aircraft and NORAD operations. Let me click on that. And he added this information in response to Nick Sorter's post, who, like many others, has been keeping up with all of this. All right, so as for what Emergent Perspective said here, the information. This is unprecedented. As far as I know, I'll try to see what I can find out from reliable sources. Why would they do this? Here's my informed speculation about why they might do this. Do what exactly? Oh, a 2-day stand-down order for all aviation units, both inside and outside of the U.S. Touched on that a little bit, courtesy of the New York Times article, but let's see what Emergent Perspective had to say about it here. Personnel, either they suspect or found evidence of there being compromised personnel, or they want to investigate further. Perhaps a training issue on procedures that was unforeseen, pilots found to be undertrained, perhaps. That seems to be where this is pointing. But, I don't really have a lot of trust for some of the entities at play here, especially under the Biden administration, not to tie everything together too closely. Equipment. Either something in the aircraft's hardware or software malfunctioned or didn't operate as expected. Perhaps they're doing a root cause analysis on software, code, or hardware. Speculation from Emergent Perspective. Here's more. I think the strangest part of this is they said they couldn't track the aircraft. That seems unlikely. Well, it could have been because it had already crashed by then. Any military aircraft operating in U.S. airspace would be squawking Mode 4 military IFF, and they'd be able to track it with that. If the pilot had the transponder off or the ejection procedure disabled, it is the only scenario that makes any sense to me. Oh, is the only scenario that makes sense to me. Okay, I see what he's saying here. If the pilot had the transponder off or the ejection procedure disabled, it is the only scenario that makes any sense to me. Kind of confusing wording, but good stuff. If you guys do a space on this, send me an invite. I'll join, blah, 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 blah. Answering additional questions. It's stealth. Yes, but the transponder box isn't by design. They also typically place these on the outside when it isn't in a combat zone. So even if the jet overall is in stealth mode, the transponder box isn't, and therefore it should be trackable. That seems to be the point. Removable Lundberg lens type radar reflectors are sometimes attached to military aircraft in order to make stealth aircraft visible during training operations or to conceal their true radar signature. What about radar data? NORAD and the FAA would have radar data up to the point it either flew too low, turned the transponder off, or exited the radar range if U.S. airspace. If it did. Also depends on if the radar reflectors were installed or not. See post 3, which was the previous post. So someone responds saying, Mode 4 isn't active in the continental U.S. for the majority of training missions. It's only loaded for combat and potentially for combat support, which doesn't occur in CONUS. Was that training? Your point about the training missions makes sense. NORAD aircraft conducting intercepts in CONUS do use Mode 4. Source, my eyeballs staring at way too much of that on radar screens. Okay. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole because I get in over my head. But feel free to inform me about anything I may be missing. Here's another map. Now you see it. Now you don't. Moving on. Colin Rugg said, breaking: the missing F-35 fighter jet has allegedly been found in a field in Williamsburg County, South Carolina. The news was reported by local news station NBC2, who say officials from Joint Base Charleston confirmed the news. Well, yeah, it was on their X account. Officials with Joint Base Charleston confirmed that debris from a F-35 fighter jet that went missing Sunday had been located near Williamsburg County. And you know what? I'm going to speed this up a bit. Breaking! And this was a little bit earlier in the day in regards to the 2-day stand down. This keeps getting more bizarre, Colin Rugg said. According to ABC News, no units are allowed to fly unless there is a discussion for 2 days about safety measures and procedures. That was sent out in a service-wide email on Monday by the commandant. The commandant. And here's a video, which I keep seeing, and I think it's supposed to be of the jet some point before it crashed. Flying very low and then shooting up like a rocket. I'm assuming that's supposed to be the jet because of the rate at which people are sharing this clip. There's another angle of it as well, I believe, right here. Let's see if it turns over. Okay, I don't know if that's even the same video. I don't know if the angle is the same. I mean, if the angle at which the plane is elevating, the jet is elevating, is the same. Is that supposed to be a different angle of the same moment? I'm not sure. All I know is that people have been sharing these clips around. Colin Rugg in this case. And also in this case. But he doesn't specify the details of that clip or those clips. So I'm not 100% sure. Either way, it doesn't really show anything definitive. A missing F-35 fighter jet highlights the tragic comedy of military spending. Interesting. Article from MSNBC. An opinion. An $80 million stealth fighter jet vanishing for over a day is the kind of thing you'd expect in a farce or satire. Self-flying plane, basically. Just floating around up there. Let me see. I am almost 30 minutes into this show. I don't want to go on too long, but let me see if there's anything interesting in this article. I also had this article pulled up. Live local now. WTOC 11. But it doesn't seem to be as extensive of an article, so I'll exit out of this one, and you know, despite not caring for MSNBC, I'll see what this opinion piece has to offer. The F-35 Lightning II is meant to be the crown jewel of America's airborne fleet. Each of these next-generation fighter jets has a price tag that runs upward of $80 million, though that can vary, obviously, according to previous information, even before factoring in costs like maintenance. According to manufacturer Lockheed Martin, the F-35 is more than a fighter jet. It's a powerful force multiplier. And now one of them has potentially crashed in a field in South Carolina. That's about par for the course for the F-35. Since it was first pitched in the early 1990s, A host of catastrophes, setbacks, and cost overruns have made the F-35 the object of mass ridicule outside the Pentagon. For all its flaws and despite it being the most expensive weapons system ever developed, there's no danger that the program will be scrapped anytime soon. And honestly, that makes the F-35 the greatest tangible metaphor for U.S. military spending ever to exist. And regardless of who is to blame here, this does kind of make the country look like a little bit of a laughingstock. Just a little bit. Not saying it doesn't happen in any other country, but we're supposed to have the greatest military in the world, right? Meanwhile, we have rogue jets flying around up there on their own, and we're putting out missing jet hotlines for people to call. If you see something, say something. There's still a lot we don't know about the lost plane, but we do know that it was part of the training squadron with 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing based out of Marine Corps Air Station, Beaufort. At some point during a flight on Sunday afternoon, the pilot ejected with the fighter jet's autopilot still running. I enlarged the text and lost my place here. Let me see if I can find my place. Joint Base Charleston, in the funniest development possible, posted a call for help from the public on Facebook, asking for assistance in tracking down the errant plane like it was a dog that had wandered off from its owner. The base even included a phone number for the public to call with sightings. The hotline. What took so long to find the plane? Well, that's a great question that's unfortunately can't be answered easily right now. For one, the thing is designed to not show up easily on radar, though that may be less important if it's currently a smoldering heap on the ground. There's also been reporting that the plane's transponder wasn't properly working, something that NBC News hasn't been able to confirm. So, what has been confirmed? Not much. What was the mishap that caused the pilot to eject? No clue. But there's a long list of possibilities. The plane hasn't exactly been the most reliable in general. Sounds like it needs some upgrades. Or shall I say the military needs some upgrades. The likely crash in the Carolinas makes the 9th total crash since the plane came into operation and has been grounded multiple times for reasons ranging from can't deliver oxygen to pilots to it's allergic to its namesake. So 9 total crashes since the plane came into operation. I'm guessing they mean the model overall, not that particular plane. That would be pretty much indestructible. Other issues have included one variant having machine guns that can't shoot straight and the Pentagon needing to cap how long the planes can handle flying at top speed. It wasn't meant to be like this. Lockheed Martin's sales pitch for the plane sounds appropriately straight out of the 90s. A fighter jet that comes in multiple extreme flavors, each designed for a different style of combat and equipped with the most advanced stealth technology. The 3 variants for the Air Force, Marines, and Navy have distinct mission usage, but have interchangeable parts. Only a fool would turn down investing in what's basically 3 planes in one. So it's a good deal for someone. That dream hasn't exactly lived up to reality. Only about 20% of the model's parts overlap, and the lack of spare parts has been a major factor in the plane's problems, according to the Government Accountability Office. Likewise, earlier this year, the Congressional Budget Office reported that only between 54 to 58% of F-35 variants in the military's possession were available in 2022. So with so many problems with such a plane, such a jet, maybe money should be spent on upgrades. Money which is being spent elsewhere, for example, in Ukraine. But that's a whole discussion of its own, isn't it? The numbers are far worse for full mission availability, which means the plane is both in a squadron's possession and can fulfill all of its tasked missions. The F-35 F-35A, which the Air Force uses, was just over 40%. The F-35B and C, which the Marines and Navy deploy respectively, were close to 20%. Closer to 20%. Even the most pro-defense industry members of Congress have realized that maybe this plane isn't actually very good. Representative Adam Smith, not Schiff, but Smith, the senior Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, likened the spending on the F-35 to throwing money down a rat hole. But that hasn't dammed the river of cash pouring into the F-35. Earlier this year, the Defense Department signed a $30 billion contract with Lockheed, purchasing another 398 planes for the U.S. and its NATO allies. In a perfect real-world example of a sunk cost fallacy, there's no scenario where we'd scrap it at this point, Smith said, after that much has been invested in it. So maybe the problem isn't that not enough money is being spent. Maybe strategy is what is lacking. Maybe we need some new leaders who are focused less on diversity. But then again, it sounds like this problem has been growing for quite some time, since the 90s even. As for the overall trajectory of military spending, unlike the F-35, that's been going up steadily for years now. The House is preparing to vote on this year's defense appropriations bill, which will allocate $826 billion for the next fiscal year. With that kind of money getting thrown around, small wonder the idea of spending roughly $7 million per tail per year just to keep these things flying seems like chump change. Doesn't sound like chump change to me. Maybe the problem is there are too many chumps making changes. Or not making changes. So yes, in many, many, many ways, the F-35 vanishing over South Carolina is hilarious, and perhaps the minor vindication of former President Donald Trump, who suggested many times that the plane is literally impossible to see with the naked eye. But when you consider what it says about how the people in power chose to spend taxpayer money, well, that makes me want to trigger their ejection seats. That's a fine final line there. So this was written by Hayes Brown, a writer and editor for MSNBC Daily. Sounded like something less than critical of Donald Trump there at the end. Unless he was joking about that as well. Surprise coming from MSNBC that they didn't spin it into a criticism of Donald Trump. That's how most of these articles end. A dig at the former administration. But I did notice that they had nothing negative to say about the current administration, though I had a few things to say. Alright, so keep your eyes and ears peeled. And if there's anything new to report on, I'll be back to report on that as well. Before I reach 40 minutes, I'm going to wrap this show up. Alright, so thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep in touch. Keep in tune. New content is coming soon. Peace.